What's up, guys? This is Hasmik from Music of Armenia, and I am here with Daniel Bedrosian today. And Danny, I'm not going to say anything. I want to leave it all up to you to get started. Okay. Who are you, and why am I talking to you today?
Well, I am the keyboard player for Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton, and the P-Funk All-Stars, and we are playing the HMV Forum tonight in London. We're in the middle of our 4-month world tour, and that's why I'm here.
You do have a very interesting story, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your grandparents. If you could just briefly tell us how you ended up from one place in the world in the States.
Right, sure. My grandparents lived in Harpert province, which is now in Turkey. At the time, it was called Mamret al-Aziz. That was the name of the Sanjak, the province in the Ottoman Empire. My grandmother, her family lived in the city, in Harpert. They were, urban dwellers, lived in the city. And then my grandfather and his whole side, they lived in a village called Habusi. And that was also in Harpert province in Turkey. And, when the genocide happened, my grandfather was put into a school with all the other little boys in the village. My great-great-aunt was able to find him after searching all over the area, finally found him, was able to bribe one of the Turkish guards, get him out, and he was one of the only people from the village, besides her, that was able to escape. Very few people from that village escaped. And then they trekked on foot across to Halab, Syria. And then they went to Beirut, Lebanon, and then to Paris, and then to Boston. And that's, my father was the firstborn American, Armenian American, and then I'm the second, and grew up in Massachusetts. And the family's been there since about the 1930s, so we're typical Harpertsi Western Armenians, I guess, from Turkish Armenia. So.
I remember when I met you last year at Glastonbury, which was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. Before that, we were sitting in a park, and you said that you studied the Armenian history.
Yes.
If you could tell us how you ended up from history to being a professional keyboardist for George Clinton, that'd be awesome.
Sure. It's so tangled. There's so many branches to the tree. But my father and mother are both pianists, and they ran a piano school in New England. And obviously they made both my sisters and I, enroll in the school, so to speak. So from age 3.5 or 4, give or take, we were all enrolled into the Bedrosian piano school, piano studio, and from that age on till I was about 20, I was classically trained, strictly classically trained. Many hours a day, the recitals. My parents were both concert pianists, and they had majored in music, when they were in college. Graduated magna cum laude from their college. Very, very amazing concert pianists. And so obviously I took a musical cue from them. Studied for many, many years, had my own bands. Around the time I was 10 or 11, I started getting into P-Funk, right? And I really liked it because I liked all the different sounds. I felt like all the bands I was in, is you're either in a jazz band, or you're playing classical, or you're in a rock group, or you're in a hip-hop group. But with P-Funk, it seemed like I could, traverse all these different, areas of music, genres of music, and then maybe hopefully somewhere down the line put my own stamp on it. So when I was like 10 or 11, I was like, I'm going to be the keyboard player for P-Funk when I get older. And, of course, everyone was like, yeah, okay, whatever. But lo and behold, would go to the concerts and drop off my music, and some of the guys in the band really liked it, George included. They invited me down to Florida, where one of his studios is. They really liked what I did. I got a job on the road, and then by, I'm going to say like December of 2003, I was in the band. So I was one of the keyboard players. So that dream came true, which was amazing. It was like my main goal. Waited till I was done college. And since I had studied classical, and since I knew where I was going musically and professionally, I felt, well, I should major in something that both interests me and maybe is somewhere away from music. Mm-hmm. So I decided to, study history. And of course, what better history than, Middle Eastern studies, which is all encompassing, but has a lot to do with Armenian history as well. I knew very well that, in the ancient era, Armenia was a much larger nation than it is today and encompassed huge portions of the Middle East. Most of Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, northern Iran, northern Iraq, northern Syria, parts of the Levant. And I wanted to, to express and to share with the world a lot of the ancient history. A lot of people know about the genocide, still not enough, but nobody seemingly, or very few people know about the proud ancient history that we have and how long we've been around, for millennia after millennia. See, the past 10 years I've been writing a book about the tribal migrations of all the different Armenian tribes. We all look really different, our race. Like, there's different types, you know what I mean? I know types that look like you, I know types that look like me, I know all different types. But what's really interesting is that differentiation occurred more a long time ago than it did recently. A lot of people think, it's because this person invaded or that person invaded, but it actually has a lot more to do with the ancient tribes of Armenia and where they came from and how they converged a long time ago, more like 1400 BC to about 100 AD. That's when the major changes happened between all the different groups. So I'm kind of chronicling all the different types, where they came from, what they looked like, how they dressed, and what impact they made on the entire culture.
Do you think this whole thing of being Armenian, and in your case, even having studied our culture and our history, does it have any kind of impact or influence on your artistry and your music?
Everything. It has everything to do with it. My passion for it comes from being Armenian. My love of music comes, from the pride that I have and who I am and what I am. A lot of what we do on stage is very spiritual. A lot of what we do on stage is very feel-based. It's based on feel. You have to know the notes, obviously you have to know the music, but if you don't feel every ounce of it, every inch of it, then it won't go over the way that it's supposed to go. And in this type of music, it requires a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling. So very oftentimes I will draw influence or inspiration from sometimes some of the saddest parts of our history, or the happy parts, or any part that I feel is important to my being and our being as a group. And that comes out in my music, both in the kind of metaphysical realm of playing a show, but also in the more, noticeable way. I'm working on a solo album now, and there are 2 songs in Armenian. One is an Armenian folk song, Mertan Etev, Behind Our House. And then the other one is one that I wrote called Azadum Artsak. And it turns into Azadum Javach at the end. So and that's one that I wrote, but something I'm really proud of as well on that album are 2 pieces that were composed in 1400 BC by a group called the Hurrians. And they were a race that, obviously doesn't exist anymore, but they had their own language, their own culture, and were a huge part of the makeup of the Armenian people. So much so that Harpert, where my family's from, is actually Armenian for Hurrian Castle. So the castle that was there is now in Turkey. A Turkish flag flies there today, but it was a castle built by our ancient ancestors, the Hurrians. And so I felt that doing this piece would be extra special because it goes so far back, 1400 BC. What makes it more special is that it's the oldest composed piece of music that we can translate into modern notation. So it's really special in that way. And when the Hurrians had written it, they wrote it in order to keep it, because their race, by the time they wrote it, was already starting to die away, assimilate into other cultures. So it's really cool to be singing an ancient Hurrian in a tongue that is, and there are so many loan words and words that you would hear. It even says Hayastan in one part. Now, what that means probably is not the same, but the origin of that root is exactly the same. So it's really interesting.
Could you tell us about your solo project and where you heading with that? What's your message? That'd be great.
Sure. There's two major sort of aspects of my solo career that I've been focusing on. One is the solo album that is sort of a trilingual English, Armenian, and ancient Hurrian. And I call it Seri Mystic, Mystic of Love, because my great-grandmother was a mystic. She was more mystic than she was apostolic. So she had the evil eyes, and she would predict the future, and she was very in tune with the ancient order. And so I'm kind of dedicating that to her. Even though we had never met, I feel very attached to her. And she had red hair and green eyes, and I think some of my red in my beard comes from her. So I wanted to do that sort of for her. And then the other project is Secret Army. That's my group, and it's a power trio. It's just three guys. It's me and Rico Lewis, who's the drummer for Parliament Funkadelic, and Lige Curry, who's the 30-plus year bass player for Parliament Funkadelic, the longest tenured bass player in the band's history. And the three of us play all over the world, and there is a huge message in the music. We talk a lot about, the genocide, about the lack of recognition of the genocide, especially in Western nations that should have recognized it a long time ago. One of the songs on our first album, 90 Years, is a song that I had written around the 90-year anniversary of the genocide. And, the lyrics are, I grew up really sad because you took 90 years away. You took 90 years away from my life, 90 years away. We've been separated in such a vast way. We don't really think about where we could have been, where we should have been. And although I'm blessed to be where I am, I'm absolutely happy in my life, I always wonder, where would we be? Where would I be? What would it be like?
So, maybe not in HMV Farm in London.
Right.
But looking after cows somewhere in Armenia.
Right, exactly. Yeah, in a field somewhere. Yep. Boski dasht. Yeah.
So you're here in London now performing with George Clinton. And you're heading back to Hague, you said.
Yes.
And you will be touring for the rest of summer.
Yes, all the way through the end of September. Yep, and we started this one at the end of May. So we've been out for a little while. But with George, we work a good portion of the year. We've already done Japan and Australia and New Zealand, some of Europe, a bunch of North America, and then we're going to South America next month. So we do all 6 livable continents and about 40-plus nations year-round. So it's a pretty full-time gig, but it's good. Get to travel.
What is happening right now in the near future?
Okay, well, Secret Army is just finishing up a live album. We've been compiling literally thousands and thousands of hours of live and studio work and putting it together into this new live album. As yet unnamed, but it's almost finished, and a lot of our fans have been saying, we want the live stuff, because the live show is just absolutely incredible, if I do say so myself. And so we thought we'd put that out. That is going to be a simultaneous release with my solo album. In turn, I have another band that's going to be promoting the solo album with me that I'll be taking out on the road, and then Secret Army will also be going out on the road. We're planning on a West Coast tour in fall and then an East Coast tour in winter. So that's what I have coming up alongside all the work with George Clinton. But it's interesting because although George gives us so much work, I'm just really busy. I play in about 8 or 9 bands currently, down from about 13. A couple months ago, I was just like, okay, break it down to about 8 or 9. But about 8 or 9 different bands I'm working with right now. And in the studio, a lot more, doing a ton of studio work. I have a publishing company. We help new artists publish their work, teach them about copywriting their stuff, owning their materials, selling their digital downloads. Because in this era, it's an era of independence for the artist in a way that we've never experienced before. In a day when Ray Charles and Frank Sinatra were the only guys that owned their own masters, today you could record a song and own your master, and that would be unheard of even 15 years ago. So with that, I've just been about informing people about, younger bands, younger artists that I happen to like, about how they can control and own their own music. Because I kind of wish somebody told me a little early. So, I wanted, to be able to help others. And with that, I also have a production label. We just finished an album on an artist named Natalie Scott. And she is a singer from Colorado. She's half Filipino and half African. and she's got a very diverse style. And so we finished her album. And so I'm always working on new productions. But artists come to me, I like the way you play, or I like what you do on your production. And I say, oh, okay, and we do something like that.
Is there one person, be it Armenian or non-Armenian, that you would like to collaborate with?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of musicians I would like to collaborate with. But Arto, I would love to collaborate with him. And I just think I've always loved his style. His family is from Turkey too, Armenian from Turkey, so I feel like there's some connection there. And the fact that he's like a kind of a funk fusion Armenian drummer, and I'm a funk fusion Armenian keyboard player, that's a guy that I've always wanted to work with. I have worked with Shavo, that was a dream of mine. I worked with him recently alongside George on George's latest album, George Clinton's latest album. We did a track together called Stillness in Motion. And so we did that. That was great. But I would love also to work with Serge Tankian and all the rest of the guys, John Domayan and Darren Malikian, all of the guys in System. I would love to work with any of them on any level. But also the older guys, the oud players. I love the older oud players. Like I remember when we were little kids, we'd go to picnics at the Armenian church. And there's a bunch of Armenian churches in Massachusetts, and they'd always have the big picnics. I remember we'd go out and the Armenian bands would play and they'd have the oud and the duduk, and I just used to love that, still do, love it so much. And there's a lot of incredible players that are, older guys getting up in age, but I would love to play with any of them. So.
There's a good time waiting for ya. Come on, let's get free. Yeah.
Do you think any plans you would perform even in Armenia?
I would love to perform in Armenia. I've never been to Armenia ever before, and I'm super jealous of anybody who gets to go.
I'm going there.
So yes, I would love to play there. It's probably the one place that I'd rather play than any other place, and that's something that I've held ever since I was really, really young. Which is semi-ironic because I've played all these places all over the world, met fellow Armenians in the diaspora and all these different continents, but never been to Yerevan, never been to Armenia, never been to the Republic. With that, I would also like to say, and this is more of a dream that may not come true, but I hope that in the future it does. I would like to play in Turkey, personally, because I want it to be possible sometime in the future for us to be able to go over there, because 90% of our homeland is there, and my whole family was from there. And although I feel a huge connection to the Republic, I feel just as much a connection to that land that's adjacent to the Republic. And we're not there anymore, but I feel it every day. I think about Harpert all the time. I think about the land. I think about being there and touching the soil. And it's very special to me. Very, very special. So I'd love to go to both.
Well, Danny, I wish you best of luck in your career. You're doing very well. I'm very, very proud of you. It was lovely meeting you last year, and it's even lovely to see you again this year. We will be keeping, in touch with you to be updated on your stories, and I'll see what we can do about Arto and your situation.
Nice. I'm very excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll see you here again soon.
Yes. Thank you so much.